Welcome to this balance and core workout. This workout is going to be entirely in standing. You will need just two things along with some space around you. The first one is just one moderate to heavy weight. I would say anywhere probably between about 5 to 10 pounds. If you have been regularly using 10s, you may be able to bump up to 15, but I would recommend at least going through this once with a 10, and then if it feels good, then you can bump it up if needed. The second thing, you will need something that you can put between your knees. We're going to be doing a couple of different movements that are going to require some squeezes. So I'm going to be using a Pilates ball that looks like this. And this can work great for a lot of core movements. We will be using this again. So you will find the link to this down in the equipment necessary. But if you're ready to go right now and you don't have one of these or like a kid's ball, you can feel free to use a pillow. But with the pillow, I'd like it to be a little bit firmer. So don't pick one that's really thin or is very easily malleable. You want something that is going to hold its shape that you can put between your legs and still get that squeezing, okay? You'll understand what I mean in a second, but if you want to try to find a pillow that's a little bit firmer, you can also use a foam roller, although sometimes if they're a little bit longer, it may not work. You'll see as we move through, and you can kind of see which objects you potentially have that will work well for this. Okay, for this first movement, what I'd like you to do, I'm going to turn sideways because I'm going to show you, but I'm going to keep my right leg stationary for right now. This is a hamstring activation movement. A big thing with core strength is we want to pull ourselves out of this anterior pelvic tilt, meaning your pelvis is tilted forwards, creating this accentuated arch position. Your hip flexors in particular play a big role with core strength. And when you're in this accentuated position, your hip muscles can get really tight. It also potentially could cause some overuse of the piriformis, the muscle that's back here that tends to elicit sciatica symptoms. If you've ever had pain running down your leg or anything like that, numbness, tingling, and doesn't allow the glutes to work as well. So what I want to try first is this hamstring activation movement, because what the hamstrings are going to do is pull those hips down to get out of this accentuated position. Okay, so stand on the right. I'm going to take my left leg and just put it very slightly behind. So my right leg is in front just a little bit. What I want you to do, without moving any of the rest of your body, I'm going to imagine like I'm pulling my foot back on the ground, like I'm trying to split the ground between my 2 feet, but keep my foot on the ground. So you're just going to try to pull the ground back with this leg. Okay, so as I'm putting pressure through my foot, I'm trying to pull the ground back. And when you do that, you may feel some tension in the hamstrings. So when you pull back, you should feel these muscles firm up, okay? If you need to and you're having trouble getting this, you can use upper body support like on a wall where you have that support and now you're just trying to dig that foot back. I'm putting pressure through the ball of my foot, trying to spread the ground and then relax. We're going to do 3 together just like that. Try to pull back and feel that muscle. The muscle in the back of your leg should be firm, and then rest. And then now pull back, should be firm. Make sure you're not holding your breath through this either. Relax, and last one, pull back, feel that muscle. Your glutes shouldn't necessarily be working right now. It's all in the hamstring. So I feel real squishy right here and then tight right here. Okay? And now we're going to switch. So if you want to bend that leg up a little bit, if you are feeling cramping, don't try to pull as hard. That could potentially help with that. Now, same thing, other side. So what I'd like you to do is now try to pull back with the ball of your foot. Feel that muscle in your hamstring. Feel that muscle become firm. Up here should be pretty squishy, okay? then just relax. If you want to, again, use upper body support. Squeeze or pull back, feel that muscle, and relax. We're going to do 3 more. Pull that foot back. This is one you can also do if you're feeling a lot of tension through the fronts of your hips. Feel that muscle becoming taut and then relax. If you're not feeling it, you may have better luck moving your foot further back, or you can try to move it up closer, whichever you feel more activation, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. Let's try one more. Pull that foot back. Like for me, I like to be just a little bit behind that front leg to get that maximum contraction, and then rest. This is something to practice throughout the day, especially if you find yourself in this tilted form where your hips are pushed forward and the fronts of your hips feel really tight. Just pulling back on that foot, activating that hamstring muscle, okay? Now, all I want you to do is just bring those heels up, because now I want you to use that new length. Again, your glutes are relatively soft, and we're just bringing and contracting now the backs of your legs. And you can even put your hands back here now that we have more awareness, to feel those muscles contracting. 3, 2, and 1. Now what I'd like you to do is find a space on the wall. You're going to stand up close to it. My heels are perhaps an inch or so away from the wall. We're not going into a wall sit. You can if you want an added challenge, but if you're not feeling a wall sit today, or it's just not in the cards, that's okay. I'd like you to walk your feet out maybe a step or 2, but just a small step. So now I'm probably 8 to 10 inches away from the wall from my heels. But I am in contact with the wall. So my torso's in contact with the wall and my hips are in contact with the wall. Now, I want you to take your hips and essentially tilt them back. So now your entire spine is against the wall, okay? From here, the goal is to keep this position. Now, if you're in a wall sit, you're in this exact same position. I want you to tilt those hips back so your entire spine is against the wall. Without any equipment first, what I'd like you to do is just raise one arm up and then the other. Your body's natural inclination is wanting to arch away as you lift your arm. I would like you to try to work on lifting your arm without the rest of your body responding. Everything is staying quiet except for your arm. Now, I'd like you to go all the way up. I like to point my thumb backwards, so then I try to touch the wall. If you cannot touch the wall, that is okay, but this is something to work on. All the way up, and then other side. Now, if you are feeling pretty controlled with this, meaning your lower back is staying on that wall, what you can do now is take both at the same time. The second your lower back loses contact and arches away from the wall, that's when you need to either go back to single arm or don't reach up as high, okay? So you're just reaching till you feel perhaps that loss of control, okay? So you're either doing single or double. We have 10 more. This is a core movement. You are resisting extension. You're resisting that arch. This is 3. You can exhale on the way up. 5. Nice and controlled. 7. 8. 9. Last one. Now, I'd like you to grab that ball or that pillow and return to the same position you are in. Once you have your ball, what we're going to do is add in just a slight rotation to this. So I want you to return back to the same position you were in, and we're going to rotate up, middle, up, middle. Now, one thing I want you to be careful of here is don't allow your hips to come off the wall. Your hips should stay with the wall. We're just getting a little bit of rotation through the upper middle back. We're not twisting by any means, okay? So we're just getting some rotation side to side. You're essentially making a V position. If this does not feel very good to you, maybe your lower back muscles start to become tight, what you can do is just reach out to the side just like this. So lessen the range of motion, and we're just coming out here. But again, your main goal is to keep that lower back against the wall. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're going to go into a balance movement, and then we're going to come back to the ball or the pillow. So set it down, but don't put it too far away. I'd like you to grab one weight. Make sure your ball is out of the way. I'd like you to go into a modified single leg stance position, meaning you are pointing those toes down. If you cannot get there, you can put that back foot on the ground. If you want more of a challenge, lift the leg up. Okay, now from here, we're going same arm of the leg that's stationary. Okay, or the leg that's fully on the floor if you're standing or doing the modified. Okay, now what I want you to do is you're gonna curl up and down. Curl up and down. I would like this weight to be a little bit heavier, as long as you can do a bicep curl. We're not doing a ton, but we're looking for that hip to really start to work on this side, okay? Let's do 3 more. 3, 2, and 1. I'd like this to be a weight where you feel like you could do 10 to 12 and not really many more than that. If you feel like you could do 20 or 30, no problem, the weight perhaps may be too light, okay? And in order for this to work, we do want it to be a little bit heavier. Now I'm going to stand on the left side. I'm either pointing those right toes down in that modified or bringing that leg all the way up. I'd like you to try to bring the leg all the way up if you can. Same thing. Now we're going to curl up and come down. A little wobbliness is fine in the foot, but we're really looking for that hip to work, okay? 5 more. Make sure you're not holding your breath. 4, 3, 2, last one, and stop. Okay, we're going to do that one more time. And what I'd like you to do now is become aware of your tailbone. So I'm going to get into the same position. So I'm going to stand on one leg. If you find yourself arching as you're doing this, what I'd like you to do is take your hand, essentially put it on your tailbone, and you're going to push it down. Okay, notice how I go from this arch position into a more neutral position. Okay, and now I'd like you to keep that there. If you can keep your hand there, that would be ideal, but I realize that you may also need it for balance. So for this one, you can also tap those toes down. You're not exactly scrunching your glutes as you do this, but we're just coming into a different position, which is going to use your core a bit more. Let's go 5, 4. Make sure you're breathing. 3, 2, and 1. A lot of core control, honestly, is becoming aware of how you're moving. Go ahead and switch. So now we're going to go on the left side and the weight's in the left side. You can also take your right hand, push that tailbone down slightly, and you're going to just focus on holding this position as you come up and down in that bicep curl. Okay, so we're just trying not to over accentuate that arch. We're trying to push that down and then curl up. 4, 3, 2, last one. Okay, now we got the hips warmed up a little bit. We're going to do a variation of a squat. So what I'd like you to do is take your ball or take your pillow, find something, a yoga block also works for this. Find something you can put between your knees and you can give it a squeeze, okay? What I'd like us to do right now is just squeeze into the ball, and you should feel tension in those inner thighs, okay? You should feel those muscles activate. Then just relax, don't let the ball drop, but now you're just relaxing so those muscles are a little squishier. They're still working because we still have that object between our knees. And I want you to squeeze again. Feel those muscles, okay? Relax. Now for this one, what I'd like you to do is find your hip bones. So find where your hip bones stick out or maybe protrude a little closer to the surface. And go right below. These are your hip flexors, okay? Part of them. Now what I want you to focus on is squeezing the ball, but trying to keep these muscles quiet, okay? I like to kind of add a little bit of a massage up here. If you feel those muscles are really contracting, like if you bend forward and try to do this, you might feel those muscles come into your thumbs. So we're just relaxing, you're straight up and down, and you're just squeezing this ball or squeezing whatever you're using, keeping those hip flexors soft. And those inner thighs should be tight, okay? Relax. This may take a couple of times through this to really get the certain muscle activations that we need to. Now you're gonna squeeze, make sure those hip flexors are not overactive, and make sure those inner thighs are, okay? Relax, let's do one more. If this is very hard for you to do, meaning your hip flexors are really contracting and you can feel those muscles working so hard, we can do this on the ground as well. So that may be a good place to start, lying on your back, on a bed, on a couch, whatever it may be, bending your legs up and working on squeezing here, keeping those hip flexors quiet and keeping those inner thighs working. And rest. Now realize that this isn't going to be something that feels like you're really working. These are very intricate movements, but you may feel some muscle soreness from this just from working muscles that you're not typically used to working. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is drop the ball. We're gonna return right back to those, adding a squat to that. But I wanted you to kind of get the motion first and get those activated. Now I'd like you to go into again, a balance position, whatever balance position you're feeling today. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to do, I like to call this one a row the boat. You're basically dropping the weight side to side. But notice my chest is staying pointed towards the screen. I am not twisting on my knee, okay? So you are facing forward and you're just dropping that weight down just like this. We're gonna stay here for about 15 more seconds and then we're gonna go to the other side. 4, 3, 2, starting to target a little bit of the obliques, the muscles that are on the sides of your torso here. Switch sides, same thing. You're dropping that weight side to side. You don't need to go all the way, just drop it to one hip and then drop it to the other. Again, with a heavier weight, you're going to feel this a little bit more and it's going to be more challenging compared to if you're using a lighter weight. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead and pick up that ball, pick up that pillow. You're going to again place it in between your knees. Okay, so wherever you're at in this journey and however comfortable you feel with squats, that's going to depend on what this movement looks like for you. What I'd like you to do first is just get a little contraction through the ball. I mean, squeezing the ball, not as hard as you can, maybe about 20%. So you feel those inner thighs tighten up a little bit, okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is come into a squat, still squeezing the ball. Now, what I'd like you to look out for, and if you have like a mirror in front of you or something, or want to just practice this later, I'd like you to, as you do this, notice my knees are not necessarily coming in. That's what I mean by I want an object that you cannot squeeze so your knees are touching. Your knees should not be touching for this. And this is just a small squat. So I'll show you from this side. I'm squeezing in. As I sit into my hips, I sit back, and you should feel some glute lengthening here, okay? Feel those butt muscles lengthen as you sit down and come up. Now, if you can go lower, feel free, but this is not particularly about a leg workout or a squat. We're just trying, I want you to really feel those glute muscles lengthen as you're squeezing in. But like I said, it's important to keep your knees aligned. So your knees should really be in line with your feet. They should not be coming in like this, okay? So if you need to bring your legs closer, you can do that as well. But I just want you to focus on sitting back and coming up. So even using a wall, squeeze. Notice my knees are still in line with my feet, and come up. Feel how different that glute movement feels. 3, 2, and 1. Again, something to practice. This workout in particular can be very intricate, but I want you to open up your hips and really feel that. Using this inner thigh squeeze, coupling it with squats can be really helpful, or a hip hinge, to feel a lengthening in those glutes, in those butt muscles. I want you to go ahead and set this object, whatever it is, on the ground. This is going to be a balance movement. So what I'd like you to do is just very lightly tap or even hover over the object. The idea is you don't really want the object to move, especially if you're using a ball. This can be very challenging because you are having to very lightly touch it and be very controlled. What I'd like you to do on this one is, again, try to push that tailbone down. So as you are coming here, you're now able to lift the legs up more with your core instead of being in that arched position where now you're lifting those legs up with a really tight, overactive hip flexor. Okay, so take that hand, put it right between your tailbone, and you're just doing a very subtle push down. Then try to lift those legs with your core. As you take some deep breaths, I like to just keep my hand there just as a cue, but you don't have to if you can feel that motion. I want you to stay here for about 15 more seconds, because what I'd like you to start to feel is just a little bit of fatigue here. 4, 3, 2, and last one. Excellent. Go ahead and grab that weight for our last movement. I want you to hold it by both ends just like this, just how we did for the last balance movement. I want you to take your feet slightly wider than shoulder width. And what you're going to do is find that tucked tailbone position, just that slight movement that incorporates more of your core. And now what you're going to do is bring this weight forwards. What I don't want to see is this. And what you can also do is do this against a wall, similar to how we started, and you're just going to press this out, keeping your lower back on the wall. But ideally, you'd be able to do this without the wall, tucking that tailbone underneath, keeping that position and then pressing the weight out, because your body wants to extend as you press out. Okay, so you're tucking that tailbone under just a tad. Very, very light squeeze in the glutes. We're not clenching. 4, 3, 2, and 1. What I'd like you to do now is you're just going to reach overhead, feel a stretch right through here. And other side, reach overhead. One more time. Last one. Excellent work. I want you just to go into a very light march. Again, focusing on tucking that tailbone from flaring out to now right underneath you. And you can even keep your hand there. And you feel, or you should feel, that now more of that leg lift is coming from your core instead of those hip flexors. Okay? 3, 2, and 1. What I'd like you to do in this workout in particular is pull out maybe 1 or 2 of the movements that felt really challenging, that maybe you weren't feeling exactly that inner thigh, maybe your hip flexors were taking over, maybe you just couldn't get the hip hinge. I want you to find a couple of these movements and really start practicing them throughout the day. Okay, in order to build strength and in order to really break through that plateau of not flaring up your pain and really seeing improvements in strength, you have to understand how your body's working. Okay, so use this tailbone trick. Anytime you find yourself maybe standing, if you're standing waiting for something, cooking something, whatever it may be, find that tailbone and just do some small marches. That alone is a core workout. Even though it doesn't leave you like super sweaty or super fatigued, you're really having to work those muscles and getting those good repetitions. Okay, so choose 1 or 2 of these movements that feel good but maybe are challenging and start practicing those maybe once or twice a day. Get really comfortable with this workout. Get really comfortable at maximizing all of these movements, working on what actually needs to work, quieting down what doesn't, because that's going to take you to the next level. So before you go onto the step for this, make sure you favorite this workout so you can come back to it, so you can keep reminding yourself and being aware of how your body is moving. I hope to see you here again.